All right, there we go. Sorry about that, guys. My microphone fell over, and I had to put it back up because it's kind of on a it's kind of a weird setup. I have it attached to the table that I work off of, so I had to reestablish it. Anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome back to another Raven Reads. Today we are going to be reading Monster Club, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Wasn't sure if I would. Today was kind of crazy, but I did want to read a little bit more to you guys. So we're going to try to get through chapters 18 through 22 if we can. I'm going to go as long as I feel up to, and we will go from there. As always, I'll remind you guys of the rules. We don't talk about other things besides the story here, besides the reading. We only focus on the stories here, so please don't bring up games or other content like that, just so that it keeps things focused. And don't mock me for my bad voice acting, because my voice is not great at voicing female characters, and there are a few of those. So wanted to just say that and get that out of the way. All right, so let's get started. We're picking up on chapter 18 of Monster Club. This was written July 3rd, 2013. So let's get started. The beach was gorgeous, and as the afternoon dragged on into evening, things only became lovelier. Ashley had been confined to the umbrella all day, but as the sun began to set, she anxiously kept looking out, waiting for it to fully go down. Her strength was returning to her. Tamil had enjoyed the feel of the water, but he seemed more interested in playing in the sand. He and Sarah had started building a giant sand castle together. Katie had gone out with Calypso under the surf and were swimming together around the rocks. Abraham was sitting with Ashley and Michelle. The moon was starting to come out now, and things were starting to cool off. The chill of the air mixed with the sea spray and made everyone feel soaked, even Ashley, who hadn't touched the water all day. "We staying out overnight, right?" Abraham asked. "Yeah, we'll pitch a camp and stay here a night or two," Michelle said. "But if we're going to do that, we may need firewood, and I'll bet there are a few trees not too far away we could use for that." "Let's not worry about that right now," Ashley spoke up. "The sun isn't really down yet, and so I can't go out to get it. We have some time before it becomes an issue." Agreeing silently, Michelle stood up. "Then in that case, I'm going to get back in the water one more time before it gets too cold." "I'll join you," Abraham said, standing up. He shot a look back at Ashley. "Will you be okay by yourself?" "Abraham, I know what I look like, but I'm not a little girl. I can take care of myself. Now go." Ashley gave Abraham a kick, which proved to be quite strong for one so small. Abraham stumbled and bumped into Michelle, who laughed as he tried to steady himself. Tamil's head came up as he heard them coming. "Michelle, may we set off firework?" "Tonight, yeah," Michelle said kindly, "but why do you want to do that so badly? You won't even be able to see it." Tamil shrugged. "Can still feel when them go off, and here is enough for me." He went back to building a sand castle as Sarah gazed up and winked at Abraham. "He just likes to hear big explosions," she giggled. "They sound good," Tamil admitted. Michelle and Abraham laughed as they walked down to the water. When Abraham got in, Michelle paused. "What's wrong?" Abraham asked. "Just wait a moment," Michelle said, smiling. As she stood there, the surf began to climb up the sandy shore until it rushed up her toes. She let out a loud squeal and giggled uncontrollably, doubling over. She looked almost like a happy puppy. "That feels so great," she laughed, taking off running into the water, splashing around. She seemed more carefree than she'd ever looked before. Happy. Abraham quickly followed after her. The water eventually reached up to his chest, and Abraham could feel it washing on his bare body. "Michelle, don't go too deep. It's not safe." "You worry way more than I do, and that's saying something. Who do you think I am, Ashley?" "I heard that, you mutt!" "Bite me," Michelle laughed. "Regular comedian," Ashley responded. Michelle smirked and swam out a little further. She grabbed a hold of a nearby rock sticking up in the water and climbed onto it. "Hey, Abraham, get up here. I want to show you something. Come here." Michelle held out her hand for Abraham to take. Reaching up, he took it and allowed her to pull him onto the rock. He sat down next to her, and Michelle pointed to the beach. "What is it?" "Look," Michelle whispered. Abraham looked, and he just saw the club. Sarah burying Tamil in the sand, laughing and carrying on. Ashley sitting under the umbrella, reading her book and waiting for the sun to fully go down. Calypso swimming and splashing around in the water not far away. "I see the club," Abraham said stiffly. "Yeah. Notice anything?" "No." "They're happy," Michelle corrected. "For the first time in a long time, everyone looks so happy. There's no fear, no worries, no anxiety. This is what I want for my family. I thought with Katie coming back, it would all go right back to this, but it didn't. And now, this is just what I want." Abraham smiled, but then paused for a moment and looked back over the sight before him. There was something wrong, something missing. "Where's Katie?" Abraham asked. Michelle glanced around and suddenly frowned as well. "I don't see her." "Come on, we need to find her quick. She stands out too much." Michelle quickly leapt into the water and swam towards the beach. Abraham looked around himself and saw an odd shape in the water. It was long, snake-like, unmoving. It was slowly drifting out to sea, further away from the shore. As Abraham stared at it, he could make out the face, with closed eyes. She's there! Abraham leapt into the water and swam to her. He dove down and wrapped his arms around her middle and tried to swim towards the shore. He grunted as he felt the weight of her long body fight against him, and the pull of the tide was trying to pull him further away. He wasn't strong enough to pull her alone. Ah! Hold on! Abraham reached out to grab the side of the rock and held on, keeping his other arm wrapped around Katie's body, when suddenly the tension fell off as he saw another figure swimming up to meet him. Calypso was on Katie's other side. She had her arms around her too, kicking her tail as hard as she could. I'm so sorry, I let her out of my sight for just a moment. I got too excited. I've got it. It's all right, just help me get her to shore. No, I've got this, Calypso laughed. Abraham called as he began kicking his feet. Calypso and him worked steadily, working against the current and the tide, until finally they were able to get Katie towards the shallows. Calypso was worn out from all the kicking, and Abraham could barely move anymore. They were close, and yet the shore still seemed somehow far away. Abraham reached out his hand as if to grab the sandy beach. His strength was failing him. You idiot! A hand reached out and grabbed his wrist. He looked up and saw it wasn't Ashley anymore, but Asher standing there. He gripped Abraham's hand and with a mighty tug yanked all three, Abraham, Katie, and Calypso, free of the water, sending them sprawling onto the sand. Abraham rolled over and looked at Asher. Ah, thanks. He suddenly stopped and saw Asher wince and fall to his knees. The sun hadn't gone down just yet and his skin was burning. Asher, get back under the umbrella, Michelle cried as she and Sarah ran to their sides and held him, dragging him under the umbrella again. We got this from here. Thanks for your help, but get back under that thing. Asher didn't bother to resist as he lay down under the umbrella trying to cool off. Sorry, Asher muttered as he lay down on the towel. So what happened anyway? Well, she wanted to go swimming, Calypso explained. She seemed to be doing okay at first, but I think a wave caught her and she bumped her head on the rock. Abraham looked and did indeed see a small bump on Katie's head hidden by her hair. Oh, this is all my fault. I should have paid more attention to her. No, Sarah said kindly, putting a hand on Calypso's shoulder. Katie was being reckless again. Just give her some time to wake up, and she'll be back to her old self in no time. I know how she can get, so this is definitely not your fault. I could keep an eye on her, Asher offered. No, the sun is about to go down, and you need time to play too, Michelle retorted. Well, then how about me? Abraham spoke up. The entire group stopped and looked at Abraham for a moment. Well, I mean, I just wore myself out trying to get her back to shore. I wouldn't mind just staying put for a minute. Well, as long as you have no objections, Michelle muttered, just let us know if something goes wrong. She then turned to Sarah. You and I are going to go grab some firewood. We're building a bonfire tonight and need your silk to hold all the wood together. The rest of you, do what you want till we get back, but don't cause me any more trouble, please. Michelle and Sarah walked up the beach towards the trees and nearby forest. Shortly after they left, the sun finally began to lower over the horizon, and Asher dared to step out from his hiding spot. Ah, it's a lot better. Feels good now. Nothing like a whole new chill in the air, Asher commented. The moon was finally fully luminous, and Abraham couldn't help but note how bright it was, and how close to full it was, too. Hey, Asher, I'm a bit concerned, Abraham said. Abraham let out the towel and looked up at the moon. We plan on staying here for 2 days, I think, but that moon looks really close to full. What if something happens to Michelle? Michelle won't change unless it's a complete full moon, and I don't think it's time yet. Rest assured, I'll deal with any problems that may come, but you're on vacation, kid. Try to relax, Asher reassured him. Abraham started to respond when suddenly he let out a gasp of shock. What? Katie, who was sleeping soundly next to him, had suddenly rolled over in her sleep and was now cuddling up against Abraham, her long tail looping itself around his legs and her hand clutching his shirt. Well, it looks like Katie's managing to stay relaxed, Asher laughed. What do I do? Abraham hissed. Settle down and go with it, Abraham, Asher winked. Most guys would die to be in your position. Yeah, I'm sure she's the one who'd kill them for it, Abraham shot back. Asher laughed and walked down towards the water. He looked a little tanner than normal, possibly from the sun. His gaze seemed fixed on the ocean, and at a certain mermaid who was reclining on a rock looking out at the moon. Abraham turned his head to look at Katie. She had snuggled into him and was clinging to his body. She looked peaceful and admittedly nice in the light of the moon. Her scales were a lovely emerald and her wet hair cascading over her body. And if it were anyone else, Abraham would have been very excited about being in such a predicament. However, the fact that it was Katie made him that much more nervous. Katie could be very dangerous. He knew this from experience, and he had no idea how she would react when she woke up and found out that she'd been snuggling into Abraham. Part of him wanted to get her off of him, and another part of him didn't mind this at all. After a while, the sun finally vanished from view, and the only source of light was coming from the gorgeous moon overhead. The salty sea air made everything feel damp, and Abraham was feeling himself calming down considerably. Though it felt odd having Katie on him, he couldn't deny the fact that he was glad to have the company. His gaze returned to the beach, where he could see two figures on the rock in the water. One was Calypso, and the other was Asher. They were sitting together, but what they were doing was a mystery. Abraham couldn't quite make it out. He tried to adjust himself to get a better look, but as he did, Katie made a soft groaning noise, and he knew that stirring her would only upset her. He settled down again and allowed her to cling on to him still. "She must think you're a pillow or something," Tamil chuckled. How had he known what Katie was doing without being able to see it? Maybe he could hear her. Could he sense sleeping? "What makes you say that?" Abraham asked. "She cling to you like child does to parent," Tamil laughed. "Can feel it." Tamil continued to work on his sandcastle quietly. Abraham stared at him for a moment and then decided it was time to ask him a serious question. "Tamil, since I can't move right now and I'm kind of curious, how did you join the club? Michelle said that you were the first one here," Abraham asked. Tamil stopped his work and leaned back a little, his sightless eyes gazing off into the void. There was a frown on his face. "Not first one to join the club, but first one to arrive, I suppose. I was once able to see, long time ago. I was just normal, but being locked in crypt for centuries make me lose sight." "How?" Abraham asked, dreading the answer. "You not know what it like," Tamil whispered. "You are locked in darkness, with only images and memories past. These images, all I have left." Tamil curled up and wrapped his arms around his knees. Abraham quickly dreaded that he'd never be brought up in the question. "I'm sorry, Tamil, I didn't know it." No. Best you do know. I tell you my past. How I come to this place." And that was chapter 18. Before we go to chapter 19, I will show you the comic that was done. Well, first I'll show you this image because I think it's nice. This was Mika's rendition of Katie cuddling up to Abraham. I'll put that on the screen for a few moments. All right. And now I'm going to put this up on the screen for the next chapter. That was the comic that Mika drew for Tamil's story, which we'll be reading in just a minute. One second. Oh, there we go. Oh, wait. Chapter 19 isn't when we get it. It's chapter 20. My apologies. Well, I'll just hide this for now, and we'll pull it back up in a minute. All right. Chapter 19, written August 13th, 2013. Here we go. "Hey, would you save your stories for later, Tamil?" Michelle called out as she walked past them, carrying a stack of firewood. The sun was setting, and she looked ready to start things. Tamil stood and smiled. "Abraham, would you give hand to fireplace? I cannot find way." Abraham started to get up, but then felt Katie stir. What about her?" Tamil chuckled. "Oh, yes, I forgot." "What should I do?" Abraham asked. "Pray, maybe? Seems like a good idea." "Look, just help me up." Tamil shrugged and reached out with his foot to kick Katie. "Katie, wake up. Abraham want to move." Abraham's face went very pale, and he looked to see Katie grumble and open her eyes to see his face. There was a long pause as the two stared at each other, and the look of sleep and tiredness in Katie's face suddenly changed to shock, fear, and then rage in a matter of seconds. "What the hell are you trying to do? I'm sorry, let go of me!" Katie quickly slid away from Abraham, blushing furiously and fuming. "Not his fault, Katie. You cuddle up to him all on your own." "Oh, shut up, Tamil. You didn't see it." "Doesn't mean I do not know." Tamil grinned. Katie huffed and slid away, trying hard to focus the other way. Tamil didn't move, waiting on Abraham to help him. Abraham just watched her go and sighed. "Yeah, thanks, Tamil. Real helpful." "I try. You thank me by taking to fire?" Tamil asked. Abraham stood up and took Tamil's arm. "Thank you." Abraham walked Tamil to the fire pit where everyone was starting to gather. Michelle and Sarah were setting down the wood and putting into a pile to light up. Katie was grumbling and blushing in a corner, watching them work, refusing to make eye contact with Abraham or Tamil. Sarah and Michelle just giggling at this, of course. And up from the beach, the figures of Asher and Calypso could be seen. Her tail was still wet, so she was unable to walk, so Asher was carrying Calypso to the fire. Calypso had her arms around Asher's neck, and Asher was holding her gently in his arms. Neither looked upset by the situation. "So, we're all here?" Sarah asked. "I brought marshmallows and stuff to cook." Everyone sat down. Asher set Calypso beside him and laid her tail close to the log so that it could be warmed up by the fire much faster. "My, Asher, aren't you quite the gentleman?" Sarah laughed. Asher blushed and looked away as Calypso smiled sheepishly. "Michelle?" Everyone turned to see Michelle was staring absent-mindedly at the sky. The moon was shining brightly, and as Abraham noticed earlier, was almost full. There was a look of dread in her eyes. "Michelle, don't think about that," Asher said sternly. Michelle blinked and looked away as if pulled out of the daze. "Right. Sorry," she said quietly. "Asher, would you mind starting the fire?" Asher nodded and stood up from his seat. He knelt down by the logs and picked up a pair of sticks and some moss lying by the sand. He struck the moss between the sticks and began rubbing the sticks together. Fast. So fast that Abraham's eyes could barely follow the movements and rotations of the twigs. Soon, smoke was rising from the moss as it began to burn, until at last a small fire was starting on the two sticks. He threw the burning sticks into the sack of logs and began to toy with it, until finally a small fire was beginning to come to life. "Thank you, Asher," Michelle said with a smile. She sat down by the fire and watched the flames come alive. Asher leaned back and sat down next to Calypso. "So, now what do we do?" Katie asked. Sarah got up and began passing around sticks and marshmallows for everyone to cook. Calypso had to help Tamil put his on, as he stuck his own finger several times. "Well, we could tell stories, or play a game," Sarah offered. Suddenly her eyes brightened and she squealed happily. Oh, let's play Truth or Dare. I've always heard of that one." The group laughed around the fire and nodded. "Do you even know how to play, Sarah?" "Not a clue. Teach me." "It's real simple," Michelle explained. "You ask a person to do a truth or a dare. If they say a truth, they have to tell the truth, and if they say a dare, they have to do whatever you tell them." "Ooh, sounds fun. Let's play," Michelle announced. "All right. Truth or dare?" Sarah pondered this for a moment and then shrugged. "Okay. Truth." Michelle and the others looked at each other, then turned back to Sarah. Michelle leaned forward and smirked. "How do you poop?" The entire group giggled at this question, including Sarah. Sarah just beamed and whispered, "I don't. I just hold it all in. Why do you think my abdomen is so big?" She giggled and Abraham gasped. "What, really?" At this, the whole gang burst into howling laughter. "Of course not, you dummy. That's not something you talk about," Sarah cried through tears of laughter. Michelle grinned and shrugged. "Well, I guess since I asked the question, I'll go next," Michelle offered. But this time Calypso jumped up. "Truth or dare, Michelle?" Michelle smirked. "Dare," Michelle challenged. Calypso smiled and pulled out some string. "I dare you to tie your hair in a ponytail." The whole gang oohed and turned to look at Michelle, who suddenly looked very concerned. "I don't like stuff in my hair. I like it hanging." Calypso held firm, and after a few moments of silence, Michelle groaned, taking the string. "Okay, Sarah, give me a hand with this." Sarah scurried over and began tying Michelle's hair back. Michelle's face was filled with disgust. Tamil leaned close to Abraham to whisper, "Michelle not like hair ornament. She like free hair. What you call Michelle? Natural?" Tamil asked. "I like my hair to hang naturally. I can't stand ponytails or braids or other crap in my hair," Michelle grumbled. "Someone get back at Calypso for me." Tamil leaned back and chuckled at this. "Truth or dare, Calypso?" Tamil asked. Calypso thought about it for a moment and then smiled. Dare." Tamil gave a broad smile. I dare you. Kiss Asher. Calypso's smile vanished almost instantly, and Asher nearly fell over in shock. The entire group gasped and looked at Calypso to see if she would do it. Tamil just grinned, knowing that he'd caused quite the situation. There was a look on his face of sheer amusement, as if this was a plan that he had for a long time. Had he, though? Tamil was a mystery. It was hard to tell what he was thinking sometimes, but it was quite clear that he was intelligent. Far more than Abraham had maybe given him credit for. Now hold on a second, Asher stammered. She doesn't have to do that. Don't I have some say in this? Oh, don't pretend like you don't want it, Sarah giggled. I'm willing to bet that's what you two were doing on that rock earlier anyway, Michelle snickered. What's wrong with letting us see it? With each comment made, Tamil only smiled bigger. Oh, stop being bashful and just get it over with, Katie shouted happily, smiling just as big as everyone else. Asher turned to Calypso, who wasn't looking at him, but staring at the fire. Calypso, you don't have to do this. It's fine. No, she whispered quietly. She turned her body to face Asher and placed her hand on his shoulder near his neck, pulling herself to him. Asher made a slight twitching movement as if to escape her, but then he relaxed and watched her look up at him with her beautiful blue eyes. I really do have to do this. She leaned up to Asher and closed her eyes as her lips touched his. At first, it was just a light brushing, barely a tease of the lips. Asher just stared for a moment, his eyelids fluttering over his blood-red eyes. Finally, he began to close them and give in to her advance. He leaned into the kiss, and their lips met. They shared the silent embrace, and not a sound was made from anyone. No one laughed, no one catcalled, no one whistled. They watched the always silent and strong Asher kiss the lips of the shy and beautiful Calypso. Sorry, figured I'd share that while I was at it. Back to it. It's about freaking time, Katie whispered with a soft smile. Amen, Sarah whispered as Calypso and Asher finally broke the kiss. As it broke apart, the two only stared at each other for a long moment, with a slight blush on their faces. Calypso quickly scooted away from Asher bashfully, almost ashamed of what she'd done. Asher just sat still, processing what had happened. You know, I've always pictured the two of you kissing, and I was expecting something a little bit more, I don't know, steamy, Michelle noted. Shut up, Calypso muttered. I mean, after reading those Twilight novels and other vampire love stuff, I thought, don't even, Asher barked. His uproar caused a surge of laughter from the others, breaking awkward silence. Abraham found himself laughing as well, joining in on the fun. And then he turned, realizing it was Tamil's turn. Hey, Tamil. Abraham spoke up. Truth or dare? Everyone turned to look at Tamil. Truth, Tamil answered. Am not so good at dare since can't see. Abraham thought long and hard about what he wanted to ask Tamil. He knew so little about him, but he could only ask one question in this game. What did he want to know most? Tamil, I asked you earlier, so I want to know. How did you join the club? The club all groaned and laughed. Come on, what kind of question is that? Asher asked. That's not embarrassing at all, Katie laughed. Do another, Michelle said. The only person who didn't laugh was Tamil, who only stared off into the void. Abraham waited until everyone calmed down. Tamil breathed in and sighed loudly. It is interesting question. I was not first to join club, as you say. I was actually one of last to come to club. But how did you find it? Abraham asked. Same way everyone else do. Michelle, Tamil said. It's true, Calypso said. Michelle was the first one of us to actually officially join the club, and she's the leader, which means she's in charge of recruitment. Whenever she hears word about a monster in need, she goes to them and brings them to Solomon. That's how most of us got here in the first place. So, where did Michelle find you, Tamil? Were you in Egypt? Tamil didn't look up, but only stared out into space, as if in deep thought. Not Egypt. Found me in dark and cold place. The club fell silent as Tamil spoke, all listening. I'll tell you whole story, but it is not a happy story. And that is chapter 19. The picture you're seeing on screen was the last official picture for the Monster Club that Mika ever did. And it was probably her most detailed. She was the one who really, really liked the Calypso and Asher romance. She tried to push that in everything that we talked about. So whenever we were planning a chapter or planning a picture, she really wanted to push the Calypso and Asher romance, which I didn't mind. I liked their romance too, and I thought it was cute, so I was all for it. But she really went all out on the look here. I love the way you see the glowing of the fire near Asher. The shading is really good. Hannah, as an artist yourself, I'm sure you can appreciate it, although I know how you feel about the whole thing, so you have your own opinions. But I'll be honest, as bad as Mika and my relationship ended, I cannot deny this piece of art is really good. So I will go ahead and delete that. And now I will pull up the comic. This comic was the second to last image that Mika did for the Monster Club. This is the last comic she did anyway, and it was all about Tamil's backstory. So I will read that in just a second. But after this, there are no more Mika pieces or Mika art for the characters. All right, this is Tamil's Memory, written December 8th, 2013. Mama? Papa? Tamil's words, like his world, were lost in darkness. He could see nothing, not even his memories were visible. What did the sun look like again? What is color and what is its meaning? Does wind even have a feeling? It had been so long in this darkness. Only two words rang true in his mind. True words he repeated again and again, trying to grasp them, feel them, touch them, see them. Mama. Baba! He reached out, trying to push away the darkness. His hands hit solid matter. He pushed and shoved against the surface, struggling to move it. He was so sick of the dark, and yet also he felt hesitant. He hated the darkness, but he feared to leave its embrace. With a loud grinding sound, the object moved and fell away, and still darkness trapped him. Why was it still there? Had he not removed the darkness from his path? Hello? He stumbled forward, reaching and grasping for the light that he couldn't find. The floor he fell down upon was cold to his bare feet. He grasped and pat the ground, feeling that it existed. He tripped once again and fell to his elbows and knees. He still could not find his way through the inky black. Help me! Tamil cried. I cannot see! Please, I cannot see! Someone turn on the light! Turn on the light! Light a torch! No light came on. But there were loud footsteps that he could hear growing louder, as if they were coming to him. They seemed to echo and grow. Tamil attempted to rise to his feet again, but wobbled on his tired and weak legs. The steps began to speak in a strange language. Could they see him in this dark? But then that meant that it wasn't darkness to them, only to him. I cannot see, Tamil screamed, backing up against the wall. I cannot see! It's talking! What? Tamil cried. What was that voice just now? What had it said? The language sounded strange and also familiar, like he'd been listening to it for the past few years. The damn thing's alive! The mummy's alive! Who is there? Tamil asked. Please, you have to help me. Shoot the thing! There was the sound of two explosions. Tamil screamed and fell backward, feeling two powerful objects rip through his chest. He hit the ground, clutching his chest and leaning against the pillar. Ah! What is happening? What did I do? I can't see! It keeps talking that weird language. Shoot it again! 3 more explosions. Tamil shouted again and rolled away, trying hard to stop his shaking hands. What was this pain that he felt with each one of those wretched sounds? Why couldn't he see anything? Why was it so dark? He could feel the heat of light around him, but he could not pierce the veil. What was this strange language that he was hearing, and why did it sound familiar? He could even understand parts of it. He struggled to his feet, tears dripping from empty, sightless eyes. Please stop! God damn, the thing won't die! It won't stay down! Quick, call the police, the firemen, I don't care who! Get help, for God's sake! The sound of running footsteps told him that the odd men had left. He felt alone again, and he almost wished for their return. Was it better to have men around who wished to kill you, or to be left alone in a cold and empty blackness who knew you couldn't escape? Now, the truth was sinking in. The unavoidable truth of why it was so black, of why he couldn't see. I am blind, Tamil whimpered, tears rolling down his face. I cannot see because I've been struck blind. Tamil fell against the wall and wailed, his eyes turning to a long and mournful howl that echoed in the large room he was trapped in. He wanted to escape, wanted to see, wanted to feel the sting from the light of the Egyptian sun again. But no, he was locked within the infinite blackness of his own eyes. I'm blind! Tamil gasped as he heard the footsteps returning, but there was more this time, and they were all shouting in that language again. Tamil struggled to remain balanced, unsure about which way he should go. He didn't like this horrible, painful feeling that kept hitting him when they spoke. They were like arrows of burning fire, but they felt so much worse than that. Though they didn't kill him, they were very painful. This wasn't the feeling he wanted. Tamil made a sprint to the left where the air felt oddly fresher. Perhaps he could escape his prison that way. It was worth a shot. It's down there, do you see it? Damn it, you weren't kidding, is it a curse? I don't give a damn, just shoot it! Tamil heard their voices and tried to run faster, but his legs fell out from under him as he slipped on the flight of stairs that he'd run down. He tripped and rolled down the stairs, each crash feeling like iron spears had been thrust in his sides. It hurt so much pain in the blackness. It fell! Shoot it while it's down! Who is there? Tamil pleaded desperately. Please help me! I just want my mom and Baba! Kill it! There was a sound of rustling and struggling and then crashing. The voices were mixed in with two others. There were screams and the sounds of snarling and even a sixth sound that was a combination of what appeared to be a snap and a gurgling noise. Soon all the sound died, but Tamil felt no pain, felt no harm. The arrows no longer struck him. Are you all right? This was a different voice than before. It was not a man's voice, but a girl's, and she was younger than the men he heard. Who is this? I'm sorry, I don't speak your language. Do you know any English? English? What is that? Was that the language they spoke? It had a familiar ring to it, as if he'd been listening to it for a very long time. Yes, Tamil whispered, struggling to imitate the language he was so new to. He could feel her smile. My name's Michelle. What's yours? Tamil, Tamil whispered. Where? Mama, Baba. Tamil, where are you from? Egypt. You are not in Egypt, Tamil. You're in America. Tamil rolled the word around his mouth, trying to repeat it. You're in a different country, far, far away from your home. And from what I read on your exhibit plaque, you've been in a coffin for 5,000 years. 5,000? Tamil gasped, struggling to maintain his own breath, fighting the reality he was now exposed to. No, that's not true. Tamil built up once more in his eyes as he felt the tears, and he began to shiver and shake. Tamil, I'm sorry. Why are you lying? I'm not lying. It is a lie. It is not true. Tamil began beating and swinging at the girl in front of him, but she held on to him with unusual strength. Say it's a lie. The girl wrapped her arms around him and held him close. I'm sorry, Tamil. I am so sorry. It's not true. He began to cry uncontrollably. The loneliness, the darkness, it all held him. He could remember nothing. He could see nothing. He was trapped in the truest dark. It was terrifying. It was cold. So very cold. Michelle, we need to go. I smell people coming. A second voice spoke up. It was male, but also young. Okay, Asher, keep them occupied. Will do. Michelle took Tamil's hand and helped him to his feet. Tamil, why don't you come with us? With you? Yes, Michelle said. You're not alone, Tamil. There are others like you, and we're trying to build a group of us where we live in peace. Other Egyptians? No, you're the first mummy we found, but we have others. We're a family. Family. That word was a comfort. It was warm. Tamil gripped Michelle's hand tightly. Family. Sound nice. Yes, Tamil said. Then come with us. Be part of our family. Asher, clear us a path out of this place. Michelle wrapped her arm around Tamil's shoulders and walked him to the steps. All right, museum security's on its way. Keep moving and I'll keep them back. Tamil felt an odd sense of security from Michelle and Asher, but more than anything, from the word family. It was a light in his darkness. And that was chapter 21. Unfortunately, after this, there are no more pieces of art by Mika, so I will show other art where I can, but no more by her. All right. Chapter 21, written March 2nd, 2014. The next day had been almost as fun as the first. Abraham's mind was still wandering back to the night before, though, and after hearing Tamil's story and seeing Asher kiss Calypso, it had been an amazing experience getting to mingle and feel like a part of the Monster Club. It felt like they were becoming more than just a group of people he was living with. He cared about each of them and began to learn about them all. They were becoming more than friends. It was like Tamil said last night. More like a family. And Eddie couldn't shake the feeling that this was not quite true either. After all, how could they be a family if he was so normal and plain? All of them contributed to the club and did something to keep it functioning. However, Abraham could do so little. Here he sat in the sand near the umbrella, watching all the others running, swinging, swimming around, and laughing. Something on your mind? Abraham turned to see the little girl form, Ashley. Asher was still weakened by the sun, and to conserve his own energy, he kept himself fully shaded. He remained in this form until the night would come, under the umbrella. I'm just thinking, Abraham sighed. The beach isn't really a place for thinking, you know. It's a place for fun, Ashley replied. She reached to her sunscreen and began lathering it on her already tanning skin. The sun must be affecting him even more than the umbrella. You don't seem to be having much fun, Abraham replied. You know, you're real lucky to be human, Abraham, Ashley said sadly. When you become something like me, so much is taken away from you. I can never walk in the sun again, never taste garlic, never go a week without the taste of blood in my mouth. I mean, yeah, but you have so much too. Super strength, super speed, shape-shifting, Abraham argued. Ashley didn't look at him. She stared out at the beach where all the others were laughing and enjoying the sunshine and the surf. You know, I'd give all that up to be over there right now, Ashley whispered. Abraham stared at her for a long moment and then looked out at the others. He hadn't considered what Ashley was going through. However, he'd been given a small glimpse. Get over there and join them, Ashley urged. I'll be all right here. Abraham gave Ashley a smile and then ran out to go play. Sarah beckoned him over to build a sandcastle with Tamil, and with a laugh he ran to help, who felt more at home now than he felt in the powdery sand. Calypso splashed and leapt around in the water with a large beam on her face. Katie stuck to the shore, but did dare to dip her scaly tail in the surf every now and then. Michelle swam out with Calypso and splashed around with her. The only exception of Ashley, everyone was out in the sun, enjoying themselves. Time trickled by like sand in an hourglass until, inevitably, the sun was beginning to set. Asher dared to venture out from under the umbrella and assume his real form. The others welcomed him with open arms as they began to settle themselves on the shore, preparing another fire. The group began to gather the wood needed, but it wasn't until Sarah let out a groan that they realized something was wrong. What's going on? Michelle asked. We're out of logs for firewood, Sarah said. We only had enough for last night. Asher stood up with a grin. All right, I'll go get it, he said. I want to stretch my legs anyway. I'll be back in 5. He took off without another word, sprinting into the forest not far away. The others began to chit-chat and talk. Abraham listened in and giggled at a joke that Tamil was telling. Michelle was laughing too, but her laughter seemed to fade a little. Her eyes seemed slightly out of focus as she looked down at her feet. Are you all right, Michelle? Katie asked. I don't... Michelle tried to speak, but her words seemed strained. Along the sand, an eerie and familiar glow could be seen, covering them in a blue hue. Oh my God, Calypso squeaked. The moon! Everyone turned to see what Calypso had indicated. Indeed, the moon was out and beautiful, and was also completely round. It was a full moon. It was as if the world had been set in slow motion. Everyone's eyes went from the moon to Michelle, who dared not turn out of disbelief. Slowly and with great pain, Michelle turned to look at it, and her eyes filled with nothing short of terror. Get away from me! Michelle screamed as her body began to shake. The group leapt to her feet and scattered. Calypso made for the water as fast as she could and dived in. Sarah and Katie ran together, Sarah pulling a stumbling and screaming Tamil behind her. Though he was unable to see, the expression on his face made it seem like he'd witnessed a horror movie made real, which is what it seemed to be the case. Abraham could barely move as he witnessed the terrifying transformation all over again. As he watched her, he couldn't help but notice certain details to her transformation this time that he'd missed. As she changed, scars began to appear on her side and on her face, long gashes that he'd never seen before, and they seemed to burn her. Her teeth became fangs. Her hair began to grow over longer. Her ears were pointing and beginning to migrate up her head. Her fingernails becoming sharp and long. Her eyes, gorgeous and blue eyes, were now filled with horror and a hint of rage that was growing stronger. "Abraham, get away from me, now!" Michelle pleaded, falling to her knees and clawing at herself, trying to regain control. "Get Asher!" Abraham tried to flee, but his feet were like concrete shoes. His soft skin began to rip away from her body as she was shedding skin. With each slash of her claw-like hand, she ripped away more flesh, revealing fur, long and glistening hair that was the same color as her original head hair. The wolf was coming out of her. Michelle screamed in agony as she continued to rip away, her flesh and fur becoming more visible. Her legs longer and like long paws, while her hands became larger and claw-like. From above her rear, a long and shaggy tail could be seen emerging. Despite these changes, Abraham couldn't shake his gaze away from her eyes. Those sad and scared eyes. There was more to them than just fear or sadness. There was a plea. She was asking for something. There was something in her face that was begging for Abraham to do something. Just before her snout began to grow out like a wolf, he saw her whisper it. "Help me, please." And then she was gone. Her eyes, which once held warmth and kindness, were now cold, animalistic and malicious. She bared her fangs dangerously and drool dribbled from her muzzle. Her furious gaze rested on Abraham, and she licked her chops. She raised back her head and howled to the moon, a long and terrible sound that caused Abraham to shake involuntarily. "Abraham, run!" Sarah came running out of nowhere. She leapt forward, all 8 legs outstretched to cover ground. She shoved Abraham away as Michelle swung out her claw at him. Abraham hit the sand with a hard thud and looked up to see that Sarah had fallen on top of him. She lifted him up and shoved him forward. "Go! Michelle will kill you! You have to—" Sarah screamed suddenly as Michelle lunged at her. She used her own size to counter Michelle, but it wasn't nearly enough, as Michelle easily tossed her to the ground. Abraham, finally coming to his senses, took off running away from her. Michelle's attention fell back on him, and she started chasing him on all fours. Abraham couldn't outrun her, and the loose sand was causing him to trip and stumble over himself. He would never get away. Michelle was almost on top of him. "Stop!" Suddenly, Michelle was stopped in her tracks as Katie had slithered in out of the blue. She coiled herself around Michelle's arms and legs, using her body's constricting power to hold her. Michelle roared and snapped, struggling. Though Katie's hold was strong, it was clear she was straining to hold Michelle down. "Would you run, damn it?" Katie screamed. "It's you she wants!" "Why?" Abraham cried. "Werewolves crave human flesh! Stop talking and run! I can't—" Katie was grabbed by the neck and thrown to the sand by a furious Michelle. Michelle snarled, prepared to bite down on Katie and end her life, when suddenly a wave came rolling in from behind and forced Michelle away. Calypso was perched on a rock, building up more water by swimming around it fast and sending waves constantly at the bloodthirsty werewolf. Abraham started running again, but he could hear the annoyed and hungry wolf behind him. He felt her breath, heard her growl. Her fangs were at his back. "Help!" Abraham heard a scream and turned to see Sarah. She stood between him and Michelle, but she was clutching her shoulder and neck in pain as red blood trickled from it. Her long braid had fallen to the ground as Michelle's claw had cleaved it from the rest of her hair. Sarah fell to the sand in agony, clutching her wound, her now mangled hair laying out. "Sarah!" Katie screamed, slithering to her side as fast as she could. Michelle took no notice and once again turned on Abraham. Abraham felt tears in his eyes as he watched Sarah gasping for breath and Katie doing everything she could to save her. But there was nothing he could do. He couldn't outrun Michelle. He couldn't fight her. What was he? Just a weak human, a piece of werewolf food. "No, Michelle, don't do it!" Abraham whimpered, falling over, trembling from fear. There was no trace of the old Michelle in those eyes. She was gone. All that remained was the animal that was gazing at him hungrily. This was the end. A long shadow fell over him as the wolf lowered herself to feed. Abraham shut his eyes tight, ready for death. Suddenly there was a scream. Abraham's eyes burst open to see Michelle stumbling back as a tornado of bats screeched and forced her back. The bats reformed, standing between him and the wolf. Asher had re-emerged. His face was contorted in rage, but also fear. "Get away from here, now!" Asher ordered. Abraham stared at him for just a moment. "I said move!" Asher snarled. His eyes flashed red. "Get to the others!" Michelle roared and charged, but Asher was ready. He held nothing back as he slammed his body into Michelle, and the two titans clashed. It was like something straight out of a movie. The two most deadly monsters in horror and myth were fighting each other under a full moon. Abraham had seen this before, back at the house, but this was different. This wasn't like before. Michelle had been restrained back then, and no one had been hurt. Also, it had been clear that Asher was holding back for her safety. But Asher didn't seem reserved this time. There was rage in his face. Would he actually kill Michelle? No, that wasn't what Asher wanted. Abraham kept his head down, and what Asher would avoid, and knew that Asher would avoid such an outcome. But even so, it was clear that Asher wasn't going to put everything in if he hadn't stopped Michelle. He couldn't imagine the pain Asher had to endure, having to hold back against an opponent who wouldn't show him the same courtesy. Abraham leapt to his feet at last and ran to Katie and Sarah. Tamil was there as well, crying over Sarah, who was now bleeding heavily. "I run got Asher when Sarah goes save Abraham," Tamil explained through the tears. "Asher will take care of her," Katie agreed. "But what about Sarah?" Calypso came crawling up the beach, her fins still too wet to become legs. "Her cut's deep. She was just scratched, but we need to stitch that up quick or she'll pass out," Calypso screamed. Get her down to the beach. Abraham, use your towel to dry me off." Though she spoke to them all, her eyes were locked on the battle between Asher and Michelle, which was escalating with each moment. Every time Michelle attempted to flee and go for Abraham or anyone else in the club, Asher would leap in her way, forcing her back with fangs bared and eyes glowing with red fire. "I've never seen anything like that," Abraham gasped, watching the war waging. "Michelle," Calypso tearfully cried, "she must be so torn apart." Abraham ripped off his shirt and began patting Calypso dry, but he still watched the fight. Asher was forcing Michelle up a steep, rocky cliff on the far side of the beach. The two were locked in a supernatural struggle, their bodies shadowed and eclipsed by the full moon's light itself. Abraham was interrupted from the fight when Calypso's fins finally turned to legs and she climbed to her new feet. "Help me to Sarah," Calypso ordered. Abraham lifted her up under his arm and ran with her to the far end of the beach where Katie had Sarah down. Sarah was still breathing, but she looked really pale. Calypso knelt down beside her and began to look over the wound. "Calypso, will she?" "She'll live," Calypso barked, "but you need to calm down." Abraham had seen her like this once before when Katie had been brought back to the house. The normal shy and timidity that Calypso showed was gone and replaced by a sense of urgency and seriousness. She was in charge here, and she was letting them all know it. "She won't become werewolf, will she?" "No. I think only humans can carry the curse of the werewolf. Besides, she was only scratched, not bitten." Jamil breathed a sigh of relief and backed off to let her work. "Katie, I need a hairpin and some fishing line. Go grab a fishing pole and bring it to me." Katie slithered off to go do as told. Calypso continued to treat the injury. When she returned, she handed her hairpin to Calypso and extended the pole. Calypso took the pin and then turned to Abraham. "Look in Asher's bag. You'll find his knife. Get it and cut me about 16 inches of fishing line." Abraham did as he was instructed and found the knife, cutting the line at about the right length. All was deathly quiet as Calypso worked. Abraham dared to look back up at the fight and saw that Michelle and Asher were still locked in furious combat. It looked as if shadows fought with the wolf. Asher's body kept shifting from his physical form into shadows and bats. It was beyond a simple fight now. He didn't know what this was, but whatever it was unbelievable to witness. "Okay," Calypso finally whispered. "I've stitched it up as best as I can," finishing the stitching and breaking off the line. "It's rushed, but it'll hold until we get home and I can properly treat it." "Oh, thank you, Calypso," Katie cried, hugging the now sleeping Sarah. The color was slowly returning to her face, and her breathing wasn't as labored. "I'm sorry," Abraham whispered. "It's my fault. This was my fault. I put you all in danger, and Sarah got hurt for me." "No." Everyone turned to look at Katie, who had spoken. Everyone, including Abraham, seemed shocked by her response. "This wasn't your fault. Don't blame yourself." Where Asher and Michelle?" Tamil asked. Everyone turned to look up at the top of the cliff, where Asher and Michelle were now glaring at each other furiously. They were close to the edge. The next move, they all knew, would be the last one. Asher shot a glance down at the others and saw that they were all right. He then nodded and charged Michelle, and though he couldn't hear it, Abraham could have sworn he saw Asher's mouth form a simple sentence. "Sorry." Asher crashed into Michelle, and the two of them plunged over the edge of the cliff, falling into the crashing waves below and out of sight. The last thing that could be heard was the sound of a terrified and furious howl from Michelle. The sickening smack as her bodies hit the water was so loud that it caused Abraham's stomach to turn over in his gut. Calypso screamed. "What happened?" Tamil begged, desperately waiting to hear what had happened. They fell," Abraham muttered. "That wouldn't kill Asher or Michelle, though," Katie gasped. "That couldn't kill them. They're too tough for that." "You're right," Calypso whispered. "We'll wait for them." She sat down beside Sarah and Tamil, joining her. Abraham didn't sit. His eyes stayed on the spot where they had both fallen. There was no movement, but he couldn't see a body. He knew they were right. A fall like that wouldn't kill either of them. but what had happened to them. Who would emerge from the water the next morning? Abraham could only watch the moon travel across the night sky and silently curse it for what it had done to Michelle and to Sarah. Abraham cursed himself and finally fell back on the sand. And that was chapter 21. Now, a little bit of a story behind this one. This was about the point when I stopped working on Monster Club for a while. In fact, I wasn't sure I'd come back to it. Because this chapter, chapter 21, was written in March of 2014. And this next one, chapter 22, wasn't written until July. So I took a long break from Monster Club. And the large reason why was because this was when Mika and I broke contact and we stopped working on the project. And after that, I wasn't sure if I was going to continue it. This was about the time that Hannah stepped in to help fill the void of an artist to help things. And though she didn't draw a picture for every chapter or anything, she helped revitalize my desire to work on things by drawing the characters. So that is why I continued working on it. But all right, we are now going into chapter 22, and then we'll wrap it up after that. Okay? Let's do it. Chapter 22. The sun was starting to rise. Sarah and Katie were sleeping side by side, and the look of fatigue on their faces was apparent. Sarah was doing much better, and the cuts on her body had been stitched up very well. Her color had returned to her face, and according to Calypso, she'd be okay for the trip home. Calypso wasn't asleep, though. Rather, she had run to the water and had been gone for hours looking for Michelle and Asher, who still had not resurfaced. Her fear had driven her to sheer hysteria. How could anyone bear the thought of losing two friends so suddenly? Tamil, who usually had some funny wisecrack or a humorous outlook on things, was now as silent as the grave, with an equally dark look on his face. He stared off into the void, listening and waiting for any indication that everything was all right. Abraham was sitting on the sands, and his eyes were gazing down at his feet. He felt guilt running through his mind. Had this all been his fault? Katie had said that a werewolf will always attack a human first, and because he didn't run away or fight back, the others had been hurt trying to protect him, and now it was possible that Asher and Michelle were gone forever. Why wasn't he stronger? Why couldn't he do the things the others did? Why did he have to be the weak link in this family? All these questions filled his thoughts, his fists tightening, and he bit his lip, fighting back tears of frustration. When suddenly, out of the water, a silhouette could be seen. The sun's glare made it hard to make out, but Calypso's fins, like ears, were distinguishable. She swam over to the shore and climbed up onto the sand. Tamil's head perked up at the sound, as if hoping it was Michelle or Asher. "Any sign of them, Calypso?" Abraham called, running over to help her crawl onto the beach. At this statement, Tamil's face darkened again. Calypso shook her head sadly, tears in her dazzling blue eyes. "I can't find Michelle or Asher. I've looked for hours but haven't seen anything. The current might have taken them out to sea, and if Asher doesn't find shelter soon, the sun will kill him." Let's not panic, okay?" Abraham whispered. "I know that it looks bad, but if we start screaming or panicking, then everyone else will too." "What's its point?" Tamil grumbled. "Why are they not back yet, anyway?" "I'm starting to fear the worst," Calypso sniffled, rubbing her eyes. "How could this have happened? I didn't think that the full moon was this close." The three just sat in silence for a moment, waiting on Calypso's legs to reform. When they finally did, the sun was now clear in the sky and was beaming down at all of them, causing the sand to heat up. There was no more time. The train to take them home would be leaving in a few hours, and they needed to get back to it. "Guys, we need to go," Abraham mumbled, hating the words. Calypso hiccuped sadly, but she nodded as well. Tamil stood up and began working to pick up towels, silently swearing in his language. Sarah and Katie began to stir. They glanced around sleepily and began to take in the situation. "What about Asher and Michelle?" Katie asked. There was no answer. Everyone just kept their heads down and allowed Katie to take in that answer all by herself. She looked away and buried her face in her hands, trembling. Everyone began to pack their things. Sarah offered to carry more to make up for the absence of Michelle and Asher, but everyone told her not to and to rest instead. "We should at least pay our respects, right?" Sarah said. "We really don't have time," Abraham argued. "The train will leave without us." We can't just go like this, Calypso argued. Michelle and Asher were important to all of us, and I can't go without saying goodbye. The tears in her eyes and the heavy lump in her throat caused Calypso to sound on the verge of a crying fit. No one could blame her, though. It was too much. The others all glanced at each other and nodded their agreement. Even if they missed the train, this was something that needed to be done. We'll say our goodbyes before we leave, then, Katie said. The group gathered together on the edge of the water and stared out at the crashing surf. The sun was higher now, and there was no doubt that the inevitable had happened. And as it sank in, Calypso couldn't hold it any longer and began to sob. Abraham just stared out at the water, unblinking and unsure what to say. I'm really not good at this kind of thing. I really hate goodbyes. Abraham, Tamil whispered. Abraham turned to face the mummy, who now looked more depressed and distant than he'd ever looked before. Would you do it? Why me? Asher and Michelle were human once. Both miss being human. Perhaps it's right that humans say farewell to them? As if they were still, you know. Tamil's voice trailed off and Abraham nodded. I'll do my best. Please, just get it over with, Katie sniffled, rubbing her eyes. Abraham stepped forward and stared at the water, as if he could look out and see their bodies floating in the distance. I guess we're here to say goodbye to Asher and Michelle, our family. There was a long pause as they took in the words. We will never forget... Wait! Tamil shouted. Everyone stopped and looked at the mummy, whose eyes were wide in surprise. Tamil, what is it? Here's someone in water! A collective gasp came from the group, and everyone turned to look out at the ocean. At first, nothing was visible, but slowly, surely, they began to see a strange figure rising out of the water. It can't be, Katie squeaked. Asher! Everyone stared in stunned amazement as from out of the water staggered the wet and exhausted vampire. In his arms was an unconscious body. Michelle's body. Calypso was the first to move. She sprinted to the water, but the instant her feet hit the surf, they transformed back into a tail, and she fell on her face, sending water everywhere. Tamil and Sarah both hurried to Asher to help him. Asher shot them both a furious look, and they all stopped in their tracks. Help! Michelle! He whispered. He then fell to his knees on the hot sand as his body was smoking and burning. Quick, cover Asher! Katie cried. Abraham and Sarah both grabbed beach towels and threw it over Asher, shielding him from any further from sun damage. While he lay in the sand, trying hard not to burn, Katie and Sarah both hurried to Michelle. Calypso crawled her way out of the water and lay next to Michelle, checking her pulse. She's alive, but she's really weak. She needs shade and rest now more than anything, Calypso announced. Sarah and Tamil went to work immediately, setting out an umbrella for Asher to lay under. Katie, meanwhile, set out some bedding for Michelle to lay down on. What do I do? Abraham asked. Get some food out of the bag, then head into the woods over to where you found some firewood for tonight, because we're going to have to stay, Calypso ordered. Everyone paused and stared at Calypso. How are we going to get home, though? Sarah said. I know, we can't leave yet, but given Asher and Michelle's condition, they aren't fit for travel. They might not survive the journey. We need to stay if we want to help them, Calypso explained. Everyone hesitantly nodded and went back to work. As soon as the umbrella was up, Katie and Tamil moved Asher's body under it. Asher instantly took on his little girl form once again, becoming Asher so that he could curl up under the umbrella more easily. The transformation required energy, however, and within seconds after doing so, he slipped into unconsciousness, his body horribly burnt and scarred by the sun. Poor Asher, Sarah sighed as she brushed Ashley's hair. Well, we'll let him rest. For now, let's make sure that Michelle is all right. Abraham took his chance and ran to the woods to get the firewood as asked. He didn't want to be in everyone's way as they worked. The day wore on slowly. Everyone was concerned about Michelle and Asher, but of the two, Asher looked in the worst condition, as his body was unbelievably burnt and beaten. Michelle looked more intact, but it was clear that she was in worse shape, and she still hadn't woken up, and her breathing was so faint that more than once they panicked and thought she'd died. Time wore on, but the fact that they discovered their friends pleased them all, and their spirits were greatly lifted, until the sun began to set. Ashley should be feeling better now, but he's still too weak to even move. I know, but what more can we do for him? Katie asked. Give him blood, maybe, Tamil offered. If vampire is weak, he drink blood. Asher drink blood, he get better too. The group looked at each other, liking the idea, but they still had a problem. Asher can drink any kind of blood, but only human blood will bring him back to 100%. Abraham, you'll have to let Asher feed. Abraham felt his face grow pale from the news. What? Don't worry. We won't let him bite you, and we won't let him drain you either. We'll all keep watching, and we'll remove him the moment he gets his energy back. Abraham looked at Ashley and sighed. I won't turn into a vampire, will I? No. He has to bite you to make you a vampire, and we'll make sure he doesn't, Calypso assured him. Abraham thought long and hard for a moment, and then at long last nodded his agreement. Fine. Abraham knelt down beside Ashley, who looked up at him, too weak to even open her eyes all the way. Calypso helped Ashley sit up a little and then smiled gently. Asher, you need to feed from Abraham. At this, he shook his head. No, I can't. We won't make him bite him, but you need blood. I don't mind, Asher. I agreed. Ashley stared at Abraham as if puzzled, but didn't protest again. If you're sure you're okay with that, Ashley whispered. Abraham nodded. As he did, Tamil handed over a small pocket knife, and Calypso used it to make a large cut on Abraham's neck. The blood began to flow almost immediately. Calypso lifted Ashley up to Abraham, and he leaned forward as Ashley, almost instantly, began to drink from the open wound. The feeling that washed over Abraham was like nothing he'd ever felt before. It was bliss, almost pleasure. This was the effect of the vampire saliva, to release pleasure hormones through the host's body and make sure that they had no desire to resist. The more Ashley drank, the more weakened and excited he felt. He couldn't move, and he didn't want to. It was heavenly. He'd experienced a small piece of this feeling when Asher had healed his wound on the docks, but this was something beyond that. This is what it was to be fed on by a vampire. Ashley's eyes glowed red as she fed hungrily, all inhibitions and hesitation lost now. He was her prey, and the only chance he had of being saved from her was if Calypso and the others could remove Ashley before it was too late. Ashley, that's enough. Abraham suddenly felt the weight of Ashley come off of him, and he opened his eyes to see that Ashley was now sitting on the blanket. Her eyes were open, and her body looked a bit better than it did before, still burnt. Many of her burns had healed, though, and she smiled softly. Sorry, Abraham. Lost myself for a moment. It's okay. How do you feel? Abraham asked. Better, she laughed. She looked up at the sun as it was setting and gave a little smirk. And when the sun dips below the horizon again, I'll be perfect. What about Michelle? Sarah asked. Ashley looked over at the still sleeping Michelle and frowned. Well, she'll wake up soon, but let's just give her some space for a while. She's going to be really upset, isn't she? Abraham asked. None of this is her fault, Ashley snapped. Well, she won't see it that way, Sarah moaned. To her, this was all her doing. But it wasn't. It's simply not true, Abraham argued. The club was created, Ashley explained calmly, because people often forget that there is a difference between what is true and what is paranoia. And we ourselves sometimes forget that difference. To Michelle, she is a monster, but we know different. We know that this is not the truth. So what is the truth, then? Abraham asked. The truth, Abraham, is that the only real monsters are those that don't try to forgive and understand. And that was chapter 22. And I think we'll leave it there. Now, just like last time, I'll let you guys see some images if you like. I've shown you guys pictures of Sarah, Katie, and Michelle. Let's do Asher this time since he was such an important character. All right. All right, there we go. All right, so let's put up this first image. This was Mika's original art of Asher. As you can see, she was kind of leaning into the bad boy or Twilight kind of vampire. And to be honest, it was a good design. It was a good fallback design. I always felt it looked a little bit too much like Sasuke from Naruto, for my taste. But that was Asher's original design. But after that, obviously, Hannah did her own version of Asher, which looks like this. We'll zoom in a little bit. A little bit more focused. And then finally, we had the final version, the visual novel version, drawn up, which looks like this. All right. And that was Asher. Now let's do Calypso. Let me get the images saved real quick. Now, like I said, Calypso was a favorite of Mika's, so she drew a lot of images of Calypso. I'll try to get them all. No doubt Calypso was a favorite of hers. And I can't entirely blame her. Calypso was a really cool character. There's Hannah's image. I'll get that saved. And now let me get her visual novel sprite. There we go. Okay, so first up, let's show Mika's pictures. So first up, this was Mika's original design. This was what Mika originally designed for Calypso. Very cute design. I really like it. It's really, really good, no doubt. But then she wanted to redesign it and drew this. So you can see how they kind of differ a little bit. I personally prefer the original over the newer one, but both look very good. I'll go ahead and remove these. Now, just for fun, I'll show you Mika's image of when Asher and Calypso crashed into each other. This was a little earlier in the book. This was after Asher had taken a shower and Calypso was running headlong and didn't see where she was going. Again, like I said, Mika was a big fan of the Asher and Calypso romance direction and wanted to do a lot of art for it. And then she drew one more image of Calypso, which was this. This one doesn't have any relevance on the story. She just wanted to draw it. And I think it's a pretty picture in any case. All right. Then, of course, after Mika, Hannah took over. And Hannah made a character image of her, which was this. I actually like the way Hannah did it because Hannah gave us a full image of what Calypso would look like. And I also like the way she did the hair. I like that she gave a little shell hairpin to Calypso. I think that was a nice touch. And then, of course, finally, we had the visual novel sprite, which looks like this. Very well done. All right. And that is the Calypso art. And I guess that just leaves Tamil, doesn't it? Unfortunately, I do not have the Tamil sprite right now. But I can show you some original art of him. I'll show you Mika's art. I'll show you a fan art of him. Because Tamil had a lot of fans. Actually, funny enough, he was a fan favorite for a while because people really liked his personality. And I'll show you Hannah's art, of course. All right. So let's get Mika's image up first. This was Mika's original design for Tamil. Mika was Middle Eastern in ethnicity, so she really wanted to do a good Middle Eastern character, which is why she was so fond of Tamil. Of all the guy characters in Monster Club, Tamil was her favorite, and so she wanted to make. So he became a very big favorite of hers as well. So that was her design of Tamil. But there were a lot of fans of Tamil, and we even got a fan image of him, which I really like. This was the fan art of Tamil. Which honestly looks really, really good. So, of course, after that, Hannah took a jab at him, and I really love how Hannah did it. I think Hannah brought out a really good expression in the face. And I also like how the head wrap covers the whole top of the head instead of Mika's, which only covered part of it. I think that just helps more. Looks like one. No, Jay's never drawn anything for the Monster Club. Of all the stories that Jay has helped me with, Monster Club is not one of them. I don't know if he's even read Monster Club. And then finally, for the visual novel, this was Tamil for the visual novel. I really like this one because it makes Tamil look young, which was the point. He was supposed to be kind of a kid. He was supposed to be a child, so this making him look young really helped. Didn't Mika have a ship name for Calypso and Asher? No, she didn't have a name for it. She just liked it. But I like this design a whole lot. It really came out good. Now let's see if there are any other good pictures I can show you now. Oh, I can show you this. So Asher had a female form, like a little girl form that he uses to hide himself. Got the idea, honestly, from Hellsing Ultimate, where Alucard just turned into Girly Card, which is a big joke in the franchise. So I decided to roll with that, and Mika liked the idea. This was Mika's design for Ashley. Is Tamil fully blind or just partially? No, he's fully blind. Yeah, that was Mika's design for Ashley, which I think is just funny. You won't see much more of Ashley in the story, though. That was probably for just a few funny scenes, and then that was it. Is his blindness a result of magic? No, it's a result of him being locked in a dark crypt for so long that his eyes became useless. And I do want to share this too. This was a great piece of fan art. I do want to share this. This piece of fan art is really good. It was drawn for Christmas. It was drawn around Christmas time. I adore this art. It's one of the cutest pieces of fan art that the story has ever gotten. I do want to share it real quick. To me, it just looks so cute. I just love that. So you got Sarah over here. You got Michelle next to her. You got Abraham in the back. Katie, Asher, just being there. Calypso, Tamil, and that is a character you have not met yet. She has not arrived yet, but she will appear later in the story. But yeah, this art was probably one of my favorite pieces of fan art. It was just really cute. And it also shows how many people really enjoyed Monster Club. Just it fills me up that so many people enjoyed this story and enjoyed the characters. Now, some people have asked for like a better image of Abraham. If you want a decent image of Abraham, Hannah drew this for like a thing that was going on when I was still writing the story. And this is probably one of your better images of Abraham. Anyway, that's probably enough image sharing for now. Raven, what would be the first skill a writer should master first before everything else? Putting pen to paper, just having the willingness to just go out and put that pen to paper, honestly. You got to get over the fear of like whether or not your story will do good or not. But anyway, I think that's it. I had fun reading tonight, and I hope y'all enjoyed listening. We'll call it there. We'll try to come back next Monday and do this all again. So, yep, look forward to it, guys. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.